As part of the staff at an OFIP 1 school, I had had the chance to experience the power of professionally learning together in regularly scheduled school and divisional PLCs. And I wanted to continue to participate in PLCs, but with a focus on the issues that I was facing as a teacher of kindergarten-age students. It is with just this sense of purpose in mind that we decided to start a new kind of kindergarten network in our family of schools. For me, it's my understanding that this is part of what the group is going to be about, is sort of from a starting point going a little deeper than maybe some of the other groups might be doing, and I'm looking forward to that just because it was such a good experience with our school. With a little help from the early years coordinator and my board, we sent out invitations to the kindergarten teachers in the family of schools and established a date for our first meeting.
With kindergarten networks in the past that I've been involved with, they've always been important for kindergarten teachers in terms of networking, because traditionally kindergarten teachers have felt isolated in the way that we organize our instructional day. And I think if they're alone in a staff, they're the only unit of kindergarten, it's important for them to be able to have a place where they can go and share ideas and share resources. And I've heard a lot of feedback from kindergarten teachers that that's been the purpose those networks have served in the past. And now that we're being included in school improvement and in school planning, the way that kindergarten teachers are able to network amongst staffs has changed. When I think about the place where we are now in our thinking, certainly as a province, we've moved much more into reflective practice and the idea of networking and kindergarten teachers coming together around a focus, around a particular purpose that will have more of a direct impact on their practice versus a place where they go and share ideas that perhaps have minimal impact on the children's learning. And so, for example, they might come together around a particular chapter in a book or a journal article, go back and try something out, and then come back to the network to learn even further. So I think the biggest impact on children's learning from that kind of a process will be far more long-lasting than how we traditionally came together as teachers in the past.
Our first task together involved establishing the working norms or conditions for professional learning that would enable us to feel safe to take risks in our learning practice. But if this is going to work, us being a group from the family of schools, we have to decide on how we're going to proceed and what things we want to put as a group, put in place to make sure that we all feel comfortable. Now, going back to the clip on from Dr. Katz, we don't necessarily have to feel perfectly comfortable with every single thing. Because sometimes there's some really good learning that's going to come out of a little bit of discomfort and a little bit of disagreement. But it is worth having a discussion about what we feel we need to be professional learners. If you can think of 3 things that are part of your needs as a learner. We might have a little bit of a football huddle around here.
Of course, we recognize that your time is valuable. And so it's important what happens here is easily applied back into your daily work. But what you've also said is that it needs to be based in some professional reading and seeing perhaps what the best practice, so what does it say and what does it look like? That there needs to be built into our process some, not just sharing and collaboration, that's where we may begin, but the fact that it's going to apply back into your work. And then there's the other category about how we are with each other, so that we are positive, that we're keeping the curiosity going, but we're also thinking about listening to each other. So those are the kinds of big pieces that are emerging out of this. We'll write those up and they'll become our norms.
The next thing on the agenda was to establish a focus for our collective inquiry. We originally came together with a desire to study the oral language development of our students, but we needed to dig a little deeper to truly understand what aspects of oral language development were most problematic for our students.
But the idea is to think about 3 of your children in your program and what their strengths are in relation to oral language and what you have observed as being an area of need. And this is the kind of data we're talking about, beginning with is your observations and the analysis of that.
to say. No, sorry.
What I find
He's a
is
very oral communication
so
skills are
much to say. They love speaking, and their oral language skills are great. It's just sort of getting them to be clear about, or clearer about what they want to say.
I'm going to pass out the Post-its, and what we would like you to do is to, on each Post-it, so we're going to go through quite a bunch, take a Post-it, write down one area of need that you talked about, and just sort of stick it down momentarily, and then take another one, write about another need. So you should have, if you filled it out, you should have about 2 or 3 needs. So then your whole side of the table is going to have a significant pile of everybody's needs. And then what you're going to do is you're going to start to see where the similarities or the differences lie within your individual Post-it notes. After completing a brainstorming activity using sticky notes where we listed and then grouped the language needs of our students, we were able to determine a series of topics for our collective inquiry.
So there are a couple of things happening here. You can see that there's speech, my ability to articulate, and language development, and how that language is impacted by my physical development, whether or not I'm learning it as an additional language. So all of those things start to impact. So we have to start to think about how can we now, based on this information, start to learn about how to support the children's learning. And we can think about what does the research say about what is typical for 3.5 to 5-year-olds language development. And I think based on what you've put up there, that's a really good starting place for us. What is typical and how is that influenced by their whole development? Then we can start to think about what the instructional strategies are to address some of these needs with children. So we'll be exploring resources, journal articles, chapters from books perhaps. The most of the evidence of the children's learning and how we're extending and supporting that will be through the research you're doing in your own classroom. So perhaps it would look like when you go away today, you'll go back and make an observation and record a transcript of a child's conversation. You'll make an observation of one of these children again and bring that back to the group so we can start to connect your classroom observations with the professional resources that we'll provide and experience during our time together in the network group.